guys, April Chapman here with the Standard of Truth podcast, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. Dear ones, listen. I am in the D. What up, though? Okay, we are live in Detroit.
Facts.
And I am sitting here with the Anton Daniels of the Anton Daniels Morning Show. Anton, is it After Dark?
After hours.
After hours.
Yeah, it get a little spicy over there, though.
Listen, it's for grown folks only.
It's the things you talk about in your living room when the cameras ain't on, except the cameras
Right.
is on, right?
Anton, thank you so much for obliging my request to come and sit down with you.
Anytime.
It's been a huge blessing. Your channel, believe it or not, we're in different genres, but I've learned a lot from you. I've gleaned so much wisdom from you. And I told myself I was going to be in Detroit. I said, I got to come sit down. I want to know your origin story, because it's going to lead into some of the things that I want to talk about today. But tell me your origin story in terms of being from this town, being from Detroit, growing up and being raised here. Just give me a little bit of that background to help the audience understand.
So, my parents, okay, so my mother was originally from here, but my father is from Dawson, Georgia. So, but here's the thing. His father came up here to work at the auto plants because Detroit has always been a huge auto manufacturing city prior to the 2008 crisis where you had the housing crisis. But my father's father came up here from Dawson, Georgia in order to find work. He sent back for my father's mother to come up here, which him and his brother, they came up together. And so, they came up in order to work at the auto manufacturers, Ford, Chrysler, GM.
Right.
And then, so I'm born and raised here, which my father married my mother. 4 boys, all 4 of us, and no sisters.
You have no sisters?
No sisters. Born and raised in Detroit between 7 Mile and 8 Mile, Livernois and Wyoming. So Detroit was at one point, I'm not sure how it is today, but it was the blackest city as far as per capita, the amount of black people here versus other races.
Right.
And so, being raised in Detroit public schools, and then eventually I started going off on the wrong track. My father sent me to private school. So my father sent me and my youngest brother, because it's 6 years apart, 6 and 7 years apart. My 2 oldest brothers are 6 and 7 years older than me. I'm the middle, and then I got a brother that's 6 years younger than me. So started going down the wrong path. He wound up sending me over to private school, which I went to private middle school for 2 years, UAD Jesuit. And then I went back to public school, which I went to Cass Technical High School, which you had to test to get into. But I was, I started getting distracted because, I was raised in the inner city.
Right.
But I still had 2 parents, right? I still had 2 loving parents, raised in the church. So Pentecostal church, right? Saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost,
yes.
Speaking in other tongues as the Spirit of God give utterance,
I
right?
don't do that, but okay.
I'm just telling you, for real,
It's the origin story.
It's
okay.
It's really real. And so, church is in my background, the whole thing. And so I've read the Bible back and forth 7 times, learn all of the books of the Bible.
Right.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel,
Samuel,
1st and 2nd Kings,
This
1st and 2nd Chronicles,
murky.
Ezra and Nehemiah. So my whole thing was, it was like a merging between 2 worlds, because you do have a father, you do have a mother, you are raised in a church, but you got to go outside, right?
Right.
We still was raised in a hood, still was raised in an environment which we didn't know it was a hood.
Right.
Until I started getting older, and then I went to, middle school, and I started being exposed that it's a completely different world out here.
Right.
Right? So you're learning and being programmed, in a sense, from your cultural norms, rap music, gangs, culture, all of that stuff, right? And then at the same time, you're being exposed to the possibilities of what if, because they telling you that we always vote Democrat. I didn't learn until I got older that, wait a minute, most of our values are conservative, so why are we still voting Democrat, right? So I've always kind of been a black sheep of the family, simply because I was willing to ask the questions. I was willing to kind of go away from what our cultural norms are and really start to explore the possibility of what if.
Right.
And then also I was very, I had a hard work ethic. I always cared about, making money and being successful, and then ultimately being a pillar, using that masculinity to be the person that's basically the patriarch of the family. So that's kind of in a general sense, the origin story. Graduated from high school, started working right in the plant. Was making a lot of money. You making, $120,000 a year as a 19-year-old. So I was working in the steel mills.
Okay.
In Detroit, our goal was to get into the plant.
Right.
We wasn't trying to go to college. That's a newer thing.
Right.
When we were coming up, because I was born in 82, when we were coming up, the goal was to get into Ford Chrysler GM.
Working in a plant.
100%. Get A-plan papers. You basically got benefits. You're going to be making a really good salary. You'll be able to take care of your family. You don't even have to go to college.
Right.
So that was my goal. So when I got in a steel mill, I was cool.
Yeah.
I was cool. I married the girl that I went to high school with. She wasn't necessarily a high school sweetheart, but she was, like my best friend in high school. I got married at 22 years old. And then everything broke. My whole life went upside down after that.
Really?
100%.
Now, we can talk about the adversity and how things went upside down, but what I wanted to help my audience to understand, there were a few key things that you said that I noticed. You talked about two parents, coming from a two-parent household.
100%.
Then you mentioned this faith foundation, this foundation of being raised in the church.
Yep.
That was the lifestyle in which your parents raised you in. And
we got raised, we was for real in the church. I'm talking about
8 days a week.
I'm talking about stays. I don't know if people know anything about a stay.
Yes.
Or fasting on a stay where you locked in. We did lock-ins.
Yes, lock-ins.
We did that. We was like praise, for real.
Y'all
shout,
was laid
shout,
out.
shout. Yeah, we was that type of church. 100%.
Okay, so we grew up very similar, spent a lot of time in church. Now, it's funny because I'm a believer now, but all of that church growing up actually caused me to want to disavow.
Really?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I was the opposite.
Listen, anytime I saw somebody coming close, like they about to lay hands on me, I'm like, I'm out. Don't touch me. No, you got oil in your hands. Don't touch me.
Oh, that olive oil.
You speaking in tongues. Don't touch me.
Yeah.
And it's just this aversion because I think, listen, there's a such thing as church trauma, and I think I experienced.
I agree.
I experienced a lot of church trauma, but I found it interesting. Two-parent household.
Yep.
You grow up in the church.
Yep.
We also share something in common. You went to private school.
Yep.
I ended up going to boarding school. But something that's different regarding our paths, you got married at 22 years old.
22. Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. Obviously, right now, we're living in this culture where people your age are not boasting the amount of years in a bona fide marriage like that.
100%.
My question to you is, was it something in that foundation that we just talked about that where did the desire to, I'm going to get married at 22, where did that come from?
Okay, so within my family, I have a family of very, very strong men. On my father's side, 2 brothers. On my mother's side, I think it's seven men and 6 women. Because they had a lot of children. My grandmother on my mother's side had a lot of children.
Are they from Mississippi?
Nope, they was from here.
Okay.
So, but here's the thing though, I've never seen divorce. That's not a thing in my family. We don't believe in that. We don't believe in divorce. We don't believe in broken families. We don't believe in none of that. So I've never seen divorce. And the thing was if you're going to be playing around, if you're going to be out here, if you're going to have sex, you got to get married.
So that
there was no such thing
was
as
the worldview that you were raised in. If you're going to be out here doing this, y'all need to go on and get married.
100%. And of course, we was doing stuff that we wasn't supposed to do. We was out, getting involved in the streets and women and all of that. But once you became an adult, it was like, okay, you got to get serious about life. I was raised with an expectation on my life.
So was the expectation was to be a husband?
The expectation was to be, was to live with purpose as far as being a God-fearing man.
Okay.
And everything that came under that. You're not going to be out here in the streets. You're not going to be a bad representation of the family. You're going to be meaningful and purposeful in your life. And you're going to live by the word. And so, you not going to have no children out of wedlock. You're not going to do none of that.
Right.
So the expectation was if you find a girl and you ultimately see that she's a wife, you wife her up. And so that's what we did. The expectation was to get married. I got married at 22. All of my brothers got married earlier than me, except for my youngest brother. He got married at like 25 24, 26 or something like that.
He still got married though.
100%.
Right.
And so I've been married, it'll be 21 years this year. And
he
it's a
got
difference
me.
between being successfully married
And just
and being married. Being
okay.
successfully married, again, is being purposeful. And I think that in a way we've gotten so far away from what marriage is, and you know, we've just kind of just been winging it and figuring it out, and culturally we've been broken
Right.
to where it's easy to just walk away. It's easy to just have a broken household. It's easy to just, you know what I'm saying, do whatever you want to do and think that the grass is greener on the other side. I took my vows seriously before God.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't answer to anybody but God. And so, you know, I have a responsibility now because she's an extension of me. I'm her covering. And under no circumstances was my daughter ever going to be raised in a broken household.
Yeah, no, we don't play that. So it sounds like this foundation of faith and family, it has spilled out into the outworking of how your life has turned out.
100%.
I found it interesting that you said something like we're not doing broken homes. We weren't about to have a baby out of wedlock.
Nope.
The issue today, and I wanted to talk to you about that, is the fact that obviously the culture, society, it actually incentivizes, you know, women to kind of go alone,
100%.
do it on your own. What are your personal thoughts on how easy it is for a woman to dismantle a marriage? Because if I'm a guy, there is no upside. And mind you, this is not my position, but as a guy, there's no upside for me to get married today.
Yep. Well, it depends, right? If you want to look at it long term, statistically, and even if you remove the spiritual aspect out of it,
Okay.
men that are married, they tend to be richer, healthier long term. They have more structure in their life, and often at times they're more purposeful.
Okay,
right?
so you think the wife grounds the man to give him a sense of purpose?
Not necessarily. I think that having structure, often at times, it's almost like being a CEO of a company, right?
Okay,
I can do it all by myself,
you could.
right? But when I have, I think that the problem a lot of times is that guys are having trouble finding women that are wives. And it's a difference between, and I'm going to be frank, a hoe and a wife.
Come on, you can't
Right.
wife the hoes.
And so I don't think that guys don't want to be married.
Right.
Marriage, in a lot of instances, will save you from a lot of the things that's out there that's not good for you. It'll save you
Right.
from disease. It'll save you from heartbreak. For women, often at times, it'll save them from trauma bonding and then having to bring all of those
That
experiences
baggage with her
into
and now
a
she
different
comparing
relationship.
him
100%.
to the other 100.
100%. And so guys that get married earlier and build it from scratch with a woman, similar to how I did,
Right.
I'm incentivized to do so because we exchange in strengths for weaknesses, right?
Right.
Guys that already build it up, but then they start to look for a wife afterwards,
hard.
they're finding that it's not as conducive for what it is that they've built, and they don't see the purpose in it, especially considering even the family court laws that basically allow for him to be taken advantage of, even though she wasn't shooting in the gym with him.
She wasn't, but they'll walk away with half, and she didn't
100%.
even help build the half that she's walking away with.
Even if you get a prenuptial agreement,
It can be
you
challenged.
still have to do it a certain way, depending on what state you're in. It can be challenged.
Right.
And so guys are now saying, man, I'm not doing that. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I'm not willing to take that chance. I don't know if she's worth it.
Right. I think the major challenge with why there's this big divide between men, in my opinion, men have not changed.
Yeah.
Y'all are one-trick ponies. You find a
100%.
good woman, you're like, okay, life is simple, we're good.
We're very simple creatures.
I think the challenge now is the fact that women today are not raised to be wives.
Facts.
And so men are out here functioning in their traditional one-trick poniness, if that's a thing, and then they're like, well, where is my female counterpart? They
Well-
don't even want the same thing.
Well, a lot of guys are gay now too.
Oh.
But one of the things, I'm gonna, you know me, I'm
They
gonna just say
talking about
what it
the
is.
sodomites.
A lot of men are gay, but a lot of men are gay because they were raised by their mothers alone.
That's that matriarchal squalor I'm talking
They
about.
were raised by their mothers. They did not have a strong father.
Right.
And that is one of the things that you are protecting your children from when you are putting them in a strong. Listen, a kid, once they become of a certain age, the world is going to have them for the majority of the day.
Right.
Whether they go to school, after school programs, the things that they're going to do on a regular basis. If the reason that the word says that you have to put it in them early and it won't depart from them, even if they go through things, they'll always come back to that foundation. The way that you really put an impression on a person is when they're very, very young. By the time that they get older, it's hard to get people to change into being what it is that they're supposed to be. Right. So when you see these kids and they are very much coming from broken homes, they've normalized some of the things that they see on a regular basis. They're more like their mothers instead of being more like their fathers. You are basically creating a perverse and broken generation that's basically having intergenerational trauma passed from generation to generation.
Right.
And people are embracing the world and ways of the world, and then they can't figure out why their lives is in shambles.
Right.
You are much more likely to go to jail. You're much more likely to need therapy. You're much more likely to join a gang. You're much more likely to have depressed. A broken home, never get a college education, always grow up in debt. If you are raised in an environment where it's not conducive for you to be in a two-parent household, right?
Right.
If you are more, that is a statistical fact. It doesn't matter how you feel. Right. That is the facts. So you are putting your children at a disadvantage when you get pregnant before you get married, and then you're not committing to the vows that you took before God.
Right.
You are going to break the covenant between you and God with your children. And even the word says the children are the ones that pay for the sins of their parents.
Right.
You can't circumvent the process and think that you're going to still be successful. God operates in condition. It is everything. It's an if-then statement. If you do my will, then you will. The meek shall inherit the earth. You got to be meek, though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you go about suffering, then you will reign with me.
Right.
Everything is an if-then statement. You can do what you want to do.
Right.
Just don't blame everybody else for your problems once you start to make those decisions and then find yourself. And if you are a person, because it's a lot of people, it's not their fault either.
Okay.
Right? Their parents put them in this position. Then go and hold your parents accountable. Don't come to me and say, Anton, why are you calling it out?
So
go and hold your mama accountable.
People are upset
go hold your daddy accountable.
That you call these things out. Like, for example, I've heard you talk about women having high body counts.
100%.
And them not understanding why men are averse to, like, I'm good because that's too much. And they're like, oh, well, that's who I was then, but I'm not that same person now. Mm-hmm. Or, for example, something as simple, I was talking to my colleague, and he has an aversion to women with tattoos.
Facts.
And he's like, if I don't care how beautiful she is, as soon as I see that tattoo, I'm going the other way. Mm-hmm. And then the women's response is, but, well, you can't see it. He's like, I just saw it.
Yeah. I'm not here to fix you.
So women.
I'm not here to fix you.
I don't know how we got here, but it sounds women are making decisions and then they're not understanding why men do not want to adapt to the decisions that they've made.
And then you can also look at it not only from their parents, from society's perspective, right?
Right.
Like, I'll give you an example. I think that college today is two things. For a lot of women, it's an indoctrination camp.
Yes.
Because that's where they learn all of their liberal views and policies.
And their feminism.
100%. And it's a training ground for becoming a slut.
That's true.
That
is a fact.
If you find yourself as a result of not being under the covering of your parents and not having a foundation that's set before you that allows for you to even be able to come back to God in the first place, most people don't even know what it means to be married. They want the title, they want the ring, they want the wedding. One of the things that I tell people a lot of times is the way that you know a person is your person is you got to be equally yoked, which is one of the reasons I tell people not to date. Dating is just a gateway for you to be able to open up your legs to somebody that's their representative.
Okay.
Finding yourself.
You heard it here first.
Finding yourself in a situation where you're basically, because I tell people all the time, you need to marry your best friend. That's the person that's most, equally yoked. But when you network effectively, you can find out how people operate when they under duress. You can see how they treat their parents. You can see, whether or not they have a strong work ethic. You can see what their schedule is like. You can see what their belief system is. You can see the truth
Right.
without somebody trying to impress you and
Impress
put
you.
their best foot forward, which you didn't have to try to decipher and use some form of discernment to figure out whether or not they're the person that you're supposed to be around in the first
Right.
place, right? So when you look at these colleges, they're indoctrination camps, reprogramming your mind to think something that you're not supposed to do.
Right.
And then also they're training facilities for women that want to have a whole phase and or then try to come back from whatever it is that they did in order to try to make things right and then try to be a wife.
Right.
The original way in which you knew a woman was a wife was she was a virgin.
I mean, out there.
Well,
Ladies.
Anton, that's not the way it is anymore. Well, that's why your household is broken.
Right, because
If you want to fix the culture, we have to be proactive. First of all right, let me
Break
just
it
be
down.
real. Throw this whole generation away.
throw it out.
Honest to God, throw it all away.
Let's just start from
These
scratch.
people,
They can't be
you
saved.
you can pluck them out here and there, but they broken, right? None of these people here today is ever gonna see the land of milk and honey.
They're not going to the promised land.
That you got to go over into a whole nother generation of people.
They can't go over to Jordan.
You got to basically fix and start with the children. At this point. Wow. And so I'm a segment in the politics in this. What we see happening today with Trump in office is we see a reset. It's a reset of the fact that we don't need this bloated government that's basically been subsidized by taxpayers in order to act like we got a bunch of jobs that we don't have.
Right.
Right? We going in debt. But what it's also doing is it's resetting our cultural norms. No longer are men able to go in women's bathrooms. Even the Democrat Party today is not the Democrat Party of the 90s. It's a whole nother thing, right? It's become so left and so liberal and so, do whatever you want, identify as who you want to identify as, right? Correct. But you're also seeing a reset in that whenever you see layoffs at this magnitude, whenever you see all of these federal workers getting laid off, it's overwhelmingly women. Women are the ones that are going to suffer as much as they are suffering. When they remove diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is women.
That's those master degree black women.
Which is forcing people to come back to the fold and say, you know what? I need a man. You know what? I should have done things differently. Right. You know what? I need help. You know what? I need community. It's no longer strong, and now it's all of a sudden community.
I can do it by myself.
100%. So I won't even let my daughter go off to college. She has to be under my covering in my household until I hand her off to her husband. Even when you walk a woman down the aisle, it's covering the covering.
Right.
You're under my covering until he takes you, and then you're under his covering.
You're his now.
100%. So I just think that our cultural norms are broken. Right. I think that we have to be proactive. I think that we need to identify the people that's not coming along and stop wasting our time on those people. And then after that, I think we need to reset and understand where we came from as far as from a conservative values and basis, and get back to God. Other than that, it ain't no saving any people.
Sound like he said we got to leave some of y'all behind. And I'm one of those very shoot from the hip, straight shooter kind of people. So when you speak like this doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But for a lot of the emotionally
I wanted to bother people. I wanted to prick your soul. Listen, I'm not here to make people feel good. I'm only here to tell people the truth. You do with it what you will after that.
Right.
I don't need your money. I don't need your accolades. I don't need your likes. I don't need your friendship. I don't need your sharing. The only thing I need you to do is shut up and do what you're supposed to do.
Do what you're supposed to do.
I'm not interested in making people feel good.
Right. So what do you say now? We've effectively announced that the generation needs to be thrown out, and we need to start over, starting with the young people. You're going to have individuals are going to say, "Are you saying there's no hope for me?"
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. You're going to bust hell wide open.
Wait.
You're going to bust hell wide open.
Okay. Now
you can't do both. You can't be of the world.
Right.
We don't do that here.
So is it that the women who have found themselves on the rebellious end of the spectrum, some of them do see the error of their ways, and they're like, I no longer want to be that anymore. Are you saying that it's too late for them to reform?
No, it's not too late for them.
Right.
Because it's like being an alcoholic. The first step is you got to admit that you're an alcoholic.
Right.
And then that's when you start to go through the transformation.
So what about the 40 and ups, right? So we think about the Gen Xers and the older millennials who drank the Kool-Aid, who did the I'm bad and bougie, and they went and they got the degree and they got the job. They delayed marriage and motherhood in lieu of chasing the bag. Now
They could be saved, but it doesn't need. Listen, you can be saved,
right,
but it doesn't mean that it's going to absolve you from having to pay for the consequences of the things that you did.
Talk to me about the absolution of those. When you say you won't be absolved from those consequences, what does something like that look like?
So,
like, how do they move forward with a strong sense of reality, but also with a sense of optimism for the future?
I don't think that they should have optimism. I think that they just need to be realistic.
Okay, realistic meaning?
Meaning that you need to understand exactly where you stand on a hierarchy and make the adjustment so that you can have the best life ever. So I'll give you an example.
Talk to me about
I'll give you
these
an example, right?
Anton.
So let's say, for example, somebody commits a crime when they are younger.
Right.
And they get a felony on their record. Now, it's a possibility you can get that expunged from your record.
Possibly.
However, the key is that it's a strong possibility that that felony is going to stay on your record forever.
Right.
So you're never going to qualify for certain jobs.
Yes.
You're never going to get certain security clearances if you want to get a part of the government. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is something that you have to deal with, and it's almost like a scarlet letter that carries with you. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get rich. It don't mean that you can't be meaningful in work. It doesn't mean that you can't earn a living. But what it does is it says it limits your opportunities, right?
Right.
And just because we forgive you, it doesn't mean that you don't have to absolve or you have to pay for the things that you did. It just is what it is. You're never going to be able to get that family back that you killed. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're never going to be able to unharm the person that you raped or whatever, right?
Right.
So can you be forgiven? Absolutely, 100%.
Right.
There is redemption and all of that, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to have to still walk around with that scarlet letter. And what women have to understand is that it is a strong possibility that you pass up on the man that you were supposed to be with. Most women have passed up on the man that they are supposed to be with.
Because he didn't come in the package that they thought he was supposed to come in
100%.
back then.
So now what you have to do is you have to work to be the best version of yourself. Because it's two things. You got to be realistic about what your options are.
Okay.
Everybody not gonna get
Idris
Idris Elba. Everybody can't have Idris
They all
Elba.
want Idris, don't they?
But here's the key though. Let's say hypothetically there's an Idris Elba out there, and he's available. All right. Think about it. Let's think about it for a second.
Oh, God.
Let's say Idris is available. Right. Because most of us, 98% of us are regular, everyday
Just
people.
regular people.
And we deserve regular people. But let's say it's an
You
Idris
a five,
out there.
he a five.
100%.
Go be
so let's
55
assume that there's a Idris out there.
Right.
The top of the top. The question that I always ask people is, why would God ruin his life by giving him you? Think about that for a minute.
Oh God, I just lost
God loves him too. God loves him too. Why would God ruin his life? Because you not ready. Guys know, listen, we know what we qualify for.
Y'all are very realistic.
We know even if we get an opportunity to be with her, that it's not something that's going to translate long term.
Right.
And that, you know what, I can't even sustain that. That's not even something. I will ruin that 100%.
Right.
Women, for whatever reason,
the ambition,
they think that they all deserve Idris, right?
Why
and
is
so
that?
what I'm saying is we have to be realistic.
Right.
It is nothing wrong with the guy that is the plumber. It is nothing wrong with the guy that's the electric. That's a good guy.
That's a good dude. He get up, he go to work
100%.
every day.
So nothing wrong with a guy that got a regular
bunch
job.
Of debts. He driving a Camry.
100%.
Listen.
That's a good car. But we live in an era and an age where people are so caught up chasing other people and trying to compare themselves to other people that they're not satisfied with being married. They're not satisfied with having a strong family. They're not satisfied with having a God-fearing man. They want Idris Elba.
They want the Instagram feed.
They want Tupac in a suit. And so you
I ain't never heard it put that way.
can't have the
Tupac
guy
in a suit.
that's rough and have intelligence, but he transitioned from the street. Now he wearing a suit and he corporate America. You can't have him. You can't have him. He don't exist for you.
Right.
And so be realistic with what you can get.
So it sounds like you were trying to communicate to the listening audience, to the females particularly, that they need to be a little bit more self-aware.
I want strong families.
See, me too. I am always advocating because strong families create healthy society.
100%.
But if we can't repair the family, then it's an uphill battle at that point.
100%.
And so to repair the family, we have to have men and women pair bonding together.
100%.
And in your philosophy, it is best to do that sooner rather than later. And this is why you're saying we got to throw this generation out.
Remember when grandma used to say you ain't missing nothing but the devil?
Right.
That's basically, listen, all you seeing from people today is the devil had his way with you.
And he made a fool out of you.
The devil has had his way with you.
Right.
And now you're telling somebody that you have higher standards because you somehow, some way came out of this fight and you still got your life, but you got all of these scratches on your soul. And the devil has had his way with you. He absolutely. And let me also say this, because I know that this is an unpopular take and this is something that nobody has told y'all before, but I'm going to tell you the truth. The devil had his way with your mother. And
that's what's wrong with most of us. It's the mamas.
Big Daddy and Big Mama, they lied to y'all. They lied to y'all. They told y'all that everything was good and all of this stuff. And they actually did y'all a disservice because what they really did was they prevented you from getting the information to understand exactly how you endure. The word says the race isn't given to the swift, it's given to he who endureth to the end.
Right.
It's an endurance race. It's not about who's sprinting. It's not about who look good. It's not about what the pictures look like on Instagram, right?
Slow and steady.
And so they did y'all a disservice by not telling y'all the truth. What really happened is the reason why Big Mama and Bishop is really Big Daddy and all of them is because they're trying to give their lives over to God now because the devil used up their best years. And so a lot of people think that they just going to lay on their deathbed at the end and say, oh, God, forgive me for my sins and I'm going to heaven. That's not how it works.
Some deathbed confession.
That's not how it works. And so God wants you at your best. He wants you when you're the most useful. He don't want you all used up and then he got to reform you and you get a refurbished. We don't want refurbished. We don't want a used product. We settle for it if we can, if we can get it. But ultimately, we all want to drive it straight off the car lot.
First of all, I just bought some refurbished iPod things.
And they probably work just as good, right?
Yeah, the noise cancellation ain't really like
but
it
we want new. And so God wants, in my opinion, God wants you at your best. He wants you when he can use you the most. He wants you to be a real saint. And what I say a saint is a saint is a person that believes in every piece of the word of God. He believes in the whole Bible.
Right.
They're not a person that's wish-washy. They don't pick and choose when it's convenient for them. Right. They're a person that's truly, truly dedicated to the word. Right? Okay. And that's when God wants you. That's when he wants y'all to be wives. That's when your husband actually deserves you the most because he's giving you his last name. He'll die for you. And so you can't get your best years to this guy that didn't care nothing about you and then tell another guy to come in and take care of his son. That's not how life works. And so people don't like that because it's being realistic. And it's also telling them that, what your parents taught you is trash and you need to hold them accountable. But they'd rather get mad at the messenger instead of getting mad at the people that actually put them in that situation so that they can heal, so that they can find themselves in a position to where maybe you can find a man that would be willing to actually be with you at your worst so that he can hopefully get the most out of you.
Okay. I have probably 2, maybe 3 more questions.
You sure that's it? Okay.
Maybe.
All right, I'm with it.
Let's talk about this really dirty word.
What is that?
It's called submission. Let's
I
talk
love
about
that word.
this dirty word. No, I love it too. It made my life so much more enriched and just stress-free. But for some women, submission is a very dirty word in the sense that when they hear it, they hear subjugation, they hear slavery, they hear oppression.
Right.
From your married male perspective, talk to me, in your opinion, about the beauty of submission and what that looks like and what it doesn't look like.
I've never understood why people look at being a servant as a bad thing. Jesus was a servant.
He was, wasn't he?
He washed his disciples' feet.
He did.
He was a servant. When we think about leadership, we're servant leaders. That means that you lead from the front, right? Everybody can't be Michael Jordan. Somebody got to be Pippen. Somebody got to be B.J. Armstrong. Somebody got to be Steve Kerr.
That's that 1991 Bulls.
Yeah,
squad.
somebody got to be Phil Jackson. Everybody can't lead. This is not a partnership. We don't need co-CEOs. And more importantly, it's best for you, because if I'm expecting for you to do the same things that I'm doing, which we've seen women revolt against having to pay the bill and going 50-50 and all of this stuff, right? All right, so if I'm in this position, right, that means that I'm protecting you from all of the things that you would have to deal with that would take you out of your femininity. I want to put you in the best position possible.
Right.
And so in order for me to do that, you got to play your role. You got to play your role. You want to work like me and you want your kids to be raised in latchkey and having to be indoctrinated by some lady that's raising your kid inside of the daycare and you don't know what they do in their own household?
Right.
Or do you want to be in a position to craft your children and leave an impression upon them and let them be a reflection of who you are because you get to stay home every day? Right. See, subjecting yourself to the person that you're supposed to be with allows for you to actually be able to live in your femininity and do what you're really purposeful to do. Women ain't supposed to be out here competing with me. You don't want to compete with me. I'm a monster.
Savage.
I have no love for you when it comes to the things that I'm supposed to do from a business perspective. I will fire you and don't think twice about it and take you out to lunch later on in the day. Men are, if we went back to the hunter-gatherer phase, which that's what a lot of our mentalities are, right. You are property. And the only thing that saves you from being slaughtered.
Like in a slavery sense?
We can go back to the biblical. When God told when he told his people to go and wipe out everything, he said wipe out everything.
Right.
He didn't say save them because that's a nice person over there. he said destroy everything.
Right.
And so my point is even historically, if you look at a lot of these, the fall of certain empires and wars and stuff, the only thing that saved women from being slaughtered, because it wasn't that they were strong enough to compete with men, it was because they had to live in their femininity, and then men determined what they was going to do with them. Do I want to take her as my concubine? Do I want to do what I want to do with her? The only thing that saved her life is that she was feminine, is that she was a woman. Women's superpower, think about it like this. A woman's superpower, you can get any man to do anything you want to if you talk to him the right way.
Come on. Would you teach the people, please?
Think about that for a minute.
Ladies, I'm telling you.
So why would you try to compete with me instead of trying to leverage the thing that God gave you that is one of the most powerful things on this earth to get the thing that is best for you?
And we're not talking about manipulation, because there's a
absolutely
difference.
not.
It's not manipulation.
My wife hasn't worked in 17 years.
Wow, yeah, I haven't worked in about 13.
I mean, she works for me, right? And that she adds value into the household and all of that. But my wife has not went and worked for anybody else in 17. She don't get up. She not looking frumpy every day. She not trying to figure out, you know what I'm saying, whether or not she getting laid off or anything like that.
Right.
She's at a baby shower having a good time.
You did call her. She is at the baby shower.
She chilling. Right. And so you don't want that. You don't want to fight with me. You don't want to fight with men out here. You don't want to try to, and I understand. I'm not saying that y'all can't be educated. I'm not saying that y'all can't work. But what I am saying is you are a helpmeet. You are not supposed to be at the front of the movement, because the minute that we start listening to you, we started voting for Kamala Harris.
And we end up with San Francisco, L.A.
Yeah, I'm not following you. Your son is gay.
Dalton, Illinois.
Your son is gay. I'm not following you. Your son is sassy.
He real saucy.
He is. Your son is sassy. Your daughter is trying to play in the WNBA. I'm not following you. I don't even want to talk to you. The only time that I need to talk to you is when you asking me, what is it that you can do for me? And then I'm going to consider what you say, but I'm definitely going to make the decision because I'm a benevolent dictator, meaning that I am a person, I'm telling you the truth. I am the person that is going to be very generous and considerate of what it is that I'm making a decision about, but the buck is going to stop with me.
Right.
I don't believe that just because you're married or just because you get with women, that automatically turns off your masculinity or we're here to serve you. You're the beneficiary. You're the one that's going to drive the cars. You're going to do all of the shopping. You're going to have a good time. You get to wake up when you want to. You're the beneficiary of my greatness. Your greatness comes through me. It is God over man, man over woman, woman over child. Now, if you want to look raggedy every day and you want to be frumpy or you want to come out and compete or you want to have gray hairs earlier than you're supposed to, then do it your way. Do it your way. Or we can do it that other way and you can really, really be able to enjoy life.
Listen, as old as my audience is, if you are 20 to 25, if you don't learn nothing else, you better take that nugget.
I'm telling the truth.
You better
Life is
take that
hard.
nugget and run. You don't want that life. You do not want that life.
Listen, I know that you ain't got enough money to be able to get an emergency done. I know you worried about your medical bills. I know your life is tough. And it's because you out of purpose. Now, you can get mad at me if you want to. Or you can do it that other. Listen, you did it your way. Your whole life, you did it your way. When you going to try something different? And honestly, I think that we need to just be very forthcoming, be very frank. Y'all need to shut up and learn how to listen and learn how to be a great follower. You are player number 2. You are Luigi. It is not called, listen, Mario
Super
is the one. You know what I'm saying? We like Luigi, but it's called Mario, Super Mario Brothers. It's not called Luigi Brothers.
It's not.
And it's okay to be player number 2.
I actually like Luigi.
I think it's
It's
cool.
the green for me.
I don't know why everybody can't be. It ain't even. And here's the worst part about it. It's not even glorious. It's not fun being a leader. It's not like we not.
burden.
Yeah, we not having fun all day. 90% of my day is trying to figure out how it is that I can make sure that your life is easier. 90% of my day, I place everybody before myself. My daughter, before I ever even thought about doing certain things, before I even got a second place, I had to make sure that my daughter got of a certain age and that she had her whole college funded, that she was good, that she had a car. Before I ever even bought a car for my wife or anything, or for myself, I bought everything that I could for my wife.
Right.
I make sure everybody, your employees, people that work for you, I pay them first. I don't pay myself first.
You're last.
I'm always last. And I'm okay with that because that is what leadership is. Leadership is making sure that everybody else is taken care of. We gonna get socks for Christmas or Father's Day. You gonna get a whole bouquet. Or you can buy them for yourself if you just want to do it your way. But my point is that it's not a glorious life. We die on the battlefield in order for you to survive. We go out here and we kill ourselves a little bit every day. The way that we show love is by the light switch coming on, but we had to trade in our time for money, which we would prefer to actually be at the house with you, but we went out there and did it anyway. The true measure of a man is doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. But we do it anyway, under all circumstances, to make sure that you got it. And the most disrespectful thing that you could do is say that you don't appreciate it.
Listen, he done left the ball
We
on the
built
field.
this world. All of y'all thinking that y'all men and all of that stuff. Guess what? We would look at you as just a woman. You would be a prize. If this was the apocalypse right now, you would be the prize. We still look at you as a woman. Get your life in order. Ain't you tired? Ain't you tired of the devil having his way with you? Ain't you tired of people absolutely destroying your life? Ain't you tired of having all of these diseases because you being overly promiscuous and you giving yourself to men that don't even care nothing about you? Ain't you tired of having children out of wedlock and asking somebody else to take care of your children? Ain't you tired of your children growing up and stealing my kids' hubcaps? I mean, I'm just saying, at some point, we got to reset and say, you know what?
This ain't working.
This is messed up. We got to do stuff differently. And so all I'm saying is, I don't care about your followings. I don't care about your subscriptions. I don't care about your life. Only thing I care about is telling you exactly what God told me to tell you. And he's saying that come home Stop being a part of the Democratic plantation. Come home. Stop being for the streets. Come home. Stop being surrounded by people that don't even have your best interests at heart, and actually hearken into his voice. And if you never had a sign that you need to do things differently, here it is. Don't die being poor, broke, and broken. You got a better life on the other side of it, and you can have heaven on earth as well as in heaven. You don't have to be poor here and then thinking that you go to heaven and you still gonna bust hell wide open. Wake up. Wake up and stop being stupid. You dumb. You've been thinking for yourself your whole life. Time to do something different. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Listen, you chose violence. And the violence
That's
taken
love.
by force.
That's love.
Listen, no. I wanted this sit down. I wanted you to leave the ball on the field because there are things that the culture needs to hear that only certain people, I believe, are equipped to say it. And you say it the way you say it. And we know it's coming from a place of love. Some people want to rub your back. Other people want to, kind of slap you up the head a little bit. So, this was one of those. We needed to be slapped around a bit. Why? Because the culture is trash. And it's because we haven't done it the right way. I'm always talking about on my channel having a biblical worldview, leading with a biblical worldview. The reason why the culture is so messed up is because we've strayed so far away from these basic, rudimentary, foundational things.
100%.
Which is family and a strong faith foundation. Because if you can get those two right, nine times out of 10, that worldview is going to spill over into the politics so
100%.
that you aren't supporting things that go against your own best interest, like I've always heard you say. So my last question, now that it's 2025,
Be careful.
Really?
No, I'm just messing with you.
Now that it's 2025, I would say that even though we did not know each other, I believe that we were both fighting alongside one another for the heart of the culture to wake people that look like us up. I heard you talk a lot about conservative values.
Yeah.
I heard you, you was punching Kamala in the mouth regularly.
Yeah.
I loved it. And I think people like you, platforms like mine, and others were integral in helping Donald Trump just get over that finish line. Now that he is here, how can you help people understand that right now he's going through things with the
we
race.
auditing the federal government.
We
We
are
getting
auditing
everything
the
out.
federal government.
Yep.
Help the audience understand how these cuts, because they're saying, oh, well, the people are losing their jobs and this is going to be disastrous. Before things get better, this has to happen. 100%. This is where a man kind of has to explain this, because a woman would be emotional and we would be so emotionally tied into the fact that the migrants are getting sent home and the layoffs are happening. From your male perspective, and you ain't got to rub our back, help us to understand why this audit, these cuts, these deportations, and resetting the culture the way he has when it comes to sexual identity. Why does this have to happen this way?
All right, so I'm going to look at it. I'm going to explain it not from a spiritual perspective. I'm going to try to explain it just from a C student's perspective.
Break it down.
All right, I'm going to look at it completely from a business perspective.
Okay.
All right, so the first thing is that most of these jobs that you've seen that they said that they was creating during the Biden administration, they were propped up by taxpayers by basically saying that we're creating these jobs. But in reality, they did two things. They had a lot of government jobs that were created, including diversity, equity, and inclusion, in order to try to act like they actually had the economy humming more than it really was. And also it was an opportunity for them to commit more fraud, right? That's number one. So the first thing we have to do is we have to reset, because if you have a $36 trillion budget deficit, that means that you broke, all right? The federal government is operating like money is free and that they'll be able to print it forever and we'll never go bankrupt. What we're basically doing is stealing from ourselves and stealing from our children, because we're not even going to be the ones that's impacted. It's going to be your children, your grandchildren, and the children that come after that. This whole country would collapse. It would go bankrupt if we continue to do the things that we're doing. So the first thing we had to do is we had to find the fraud. The second thing that we had to do is we had to right size the government, because You cannot subsidize America by saying that we need to have 3 million government workers. Clinton did it back in 93, 94. He actually eliminated over 400,000 jobs, almost 400,000 jobs within the federal government. The more important thing is that once you do that, you have to have a bi-level approach. The second part of that is now you have to incentivize private companies to then invest in the United States of America, because those are supposed to be the backbone and small business of what we're continuing to do as far as driving growth, driving resources, driving jobs, and then driving a tax base into our economy. And so you're going to have some storming right now. You're going to have a lot of people that are removed from these roles, and then we also have to have a second wave of jobs being created inside the United States of America over the next 2 years, so that we right-size the government to where we're not basically spending more than we're supposed to, spending more than what the taxpayers is taking in. Okay. And then B, we have to create an economy to where people are sustaining themselves, creating their own jobs, and then ultimately adding value into the American tax base. So when you see all of these cuts happening, all you're doing is eliminating people that we never needed in the first place, and you're eliminating, you finding a fraud. You can't have 400 million people on Social Security if we only have 350 million people in the United States of America. Wow. You can't have USAID sending money overseas to do things when we broke here in America. You can't have money being spent on illegal migrants to the tune of $7 billion inside of New York when you cutting sanitation, you cutting police officers, and you cutting resources that's going to schools. You can't have people going into your schools because they're going to continue to raise taxes. And I'm not just talking about income taxes. I'm talking about property taxes. Right. Part of the problem is that it's an affordability issue because you got 25 million people that's not supposed to be here and illegal migrants. And then at the same time, the price of everything is going up because we basically have to subsidize a lifestyle. When you buy a house, right? Let's say you buy a $500,000 house, which that is the average price of a house is going between $300,000 and $500,000 depending on where you are. You're going to have to pay between $10,000 and $15,000 a year in property taxes without the mortgage.
That's crazy.
Without the mortgage.
Right.
You drive down the cost of living, then money becomes cheaper, which means you'll be able to buy a house at a lower interest rate. You have to cut off the siphon. You have to get back to the core of what we're doing as far as what the government is meant for. It's meant for infrastructure, public safety, and to allow for us to be able to get through and open up our businesses in a reasonable amount of time. That's it. All of this other stuff that we've added in order to subsidize the government is wrong. It's off. Right. And so you're going to have a reset. And then you're also going to have people finding their purpose. Some women are going to go back home. They're never going to go back to work. Some people are going to become teachers. You're going to have these jobs being filled that ordinarily people wouldn't want because they feel like they're too good for. You're going to have people going back into the plant, people going back to do trades, people being able to go into the right things. Now that we're cutting off diversity, equity, and inclusion in our colleges, right. Which means now we'll start to spend our money on funding real jobs, STEM-related fields, healthcare, cloud infrastructure, software engineering, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. All of those things will be things that we focus on because that's where the industry is going. Right. So I just think that everything is happening exactly how it's supposed to. In addition to the fact that we need to only have two genders and we don't need men inside of women's bathrooms or in women's sports. So I just think that everything is going beautifully. And one thing you can't say about Trump, whether you like him or you dislike him, I love him, but one thing you can't say about him is that he's not doing exactly what he said that he was going to do.
He's doing everything he said. Right.
A lot of politicians promise you a lot of things.
And don't do nothing.
And even if you don't like him, you knew exactly what you was going to get with him.
Right.
So I'm with it. I like it.
Awesome. Well, this has been a riveting discussion. I had no plans in terms of the direction it was going to go, but I appreciate all of the value that you have added to this conversation. I think you are a remarkable gentleman,
you're so
an
sweet.
Amazing family man. I think there are a lot of men out here who can learn a lot from you. Learning requires humility. And
That's
so I'm glad to labor in the YouTube streets on the other side, of course, alongside you, helping wake these women up, these silly women, and then also to make these men step up to the plate. Because the generation, you got both sides all jacked up, and it's difficult for men and women to pair bond now because everybody's mad and they're pointing the finger at the other person versus both individuals just humbling themselves saying, we can figure this out.
They haven't had any leaders. And what I'm saying is,
Right.
I'm not saying that I'm a leader, right? Because I don't have to designate myself as such. You'll be able to identify them
do
by
it.
their fruit, right?
Right.
God said you'll know them by their fruit.
Right.
What we've been seeing for a long time, even in the relationship space, is that people are being pandered to, and they've been getting advice from people that's not a reflection of what they've advocated for.
Right. Like we out here listening to Umar and he ain't got a wife.
God bless him. Here's the thing though. The one
Just
thing that
saying.
they bothered by a lot of times, because you can hate the message,
Right.
but you can't argue with the results.
Right.
I live it.
Every day.
I live it. Everything that I talk about from a financial perspective to how it is that I employ certain people, to the way that I raise my family, and the fact that I am successfully married, I did it first so that you couldn't have any excuse as to why you couldn't. So you guys can think and feel how you want to feel, but if you want the results, then come holler at me.
Well, he's got the results to prove it. So, live from Detroit, thank you so much for this
I
sit
love
down.
you.
We got to do
Appreciate
it
you.
again, bro. Until next time, you guys, grace and peace.